Well, it's good to see everybody in worship this morning. Glad to have you. I guess it's up to you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today's reading is John 1, verses 38 to 41 from the New Living Translation. The beginning of this chapter talks about how the world did not know Jesus when he came, and how John the Baptist was making a huge impact on the people, telling them of the coming Messiah. This verse is actually the beginning of the disciples' walk with Jesus. So, verse 38. Jesus looked around and saw them following. "What do you want?" he asked them. They replied, "Rabbi," which means teacher, "where are you staying?" "Come and see," he said. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they went with him to the place where he was staying, and they remained with him the rest of the day. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of these men who heard that John said what John had said, and then followed Jesus. Andrew went to find his brother Simon and told him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Who needs a mic?
It sounds better on the video when we use the mic. But no, I don't necessarily need it. In the words of
Charlie Green. So, here we go. All right, so now we got rid of the echo. That's good. Emily, I could hear you sing this morning. Thank you. That encouraged me. It's always good to have somebody sing along. So, I bet Joe appreciated it too. So, all right, it's good to see everybody in worship this morning. Got some folks visiting our contemporary service who normally comes to traditional. Woohoo! We love it. So, we start back Wednesday night. This Wednesday, the Rannikers are bringing spaghetti. I hear homemade sauce. And now, I don't know if Lee's going to make his own noodles, but homemade sauce sounds good. You might want to be here for simple supper at 6:30, and then Bible study at 7. Next Sunday, back to church Sunday. I want to encourage you to invite a friend. Tell them to come and join us. We've got a pretty good place to come worship. 2 opportunities, so that's good. Church Council is going to be meeting on Sunday, September 23rd. If you thought it was today, originally we thought it was, but we pushed it back for 2 weeks. We're getting ready for Charge Conference, so all those fun things are going on. If you're looking for something interesting to do, highly liturgical, the installation service for our new district superintendent of the Gainesville District is this afternoon at the Gainesville First Church. That'll be about 3 o'clock. So for those of you who say I don't wear a robe enough, there's your opportunity. So just wanted to let you know some of those good things that are going on. The pantry and clothes closet was open this week. We're out of peanut butter jelly. So I wanted to share that with you too. So those are some of the things that are going on. We've got a lot of folks on the prayer list. Keep praying for Matt Cooper, who was the deputy sheriff over in Covington area, I think it is. And he is one of Teresa Granger's friend's children. So probably spent some time down there on the Pony Lake Estate. So make sure you keep him in prayers. Continue to pray for the family of Vondell Sosby. That's David and Sarah's mother-in-law. So ask that you keep them in prayers. As far as some things on your heart this morning, celebration or concern. Ooh, Joe's got a hand up. Woo.
I forgot to put this in the bulletin, but Wednesday's also the first youth. So
Yeah.
surprise, we're going to be doing a color war. It's going to be awesome. So bring
Old clothes.
and a white t-shirt. Sweet. That's it.
And for those of us who don't know what color war is, we might just have to watch. So anyway, so it sounds like a good time. Glad our young folks are getting back together, getting back into the groove of back to school. Poor Sarah Catherine, I was picking on her this morning. I said, so school's back in, and she kind of had that look of, yeah, too much studying, lots of stuff to do. So pray for them. So Some of our others are doing high school and college at the same time. Proud of them. Keep up. Good word. So, anything on your heart's celebration concern? Yes, ma'am.
Lois and her procedure in the morning.
That is right. Lois is having, I believe it's pacemakers tomorrow. So pray for Lois Byers.
My nephew James Askia, A-S-K-E-A, he has, all I know is the acronym of it is called GM, but it's some type of illness, and it's kind of rare, but they have to do blood transfusions to get his antibodies built up. So he's got 2 more. He's got one today and then one possibly Tuesday. He's been in there for about a week, so he's left him and his wife and son for prayer.
Okay. When can you do that?
Thank you.
Pray for James. Okay. All right, I'm going to lead us in a word of prayer. Close with the Lord's Prayer. So, Father, this morning we give you thanks that we can come and worship here. Lord, I thank you for each person who has come to be with us this morning. Thank you for the music that we've heard. Lord, we thank you for this church. God, this morning we just pray that you would be with the ministries that will be started back this week. And for our Simple Supper and for all of our Wednesday night programs for our youth. Father God, we lift up Lois to you as she prepares to have a pacemaker put in. And Father, we pray for Elaine's nephew, James, dealing with this health issue. And Father, there's probably other needs in this room that are on our hearts, whether we've spoken or not spoken them. So, Lord, I just pray that through your Holy Spirit, right now you might come and meet us here. And Father, help us to know that you were with us, that you were for us. And God, I pray that you would do the work in us that you wish to do today. Hear us now as we say the prayer which Jesus has taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So we're in our 5th week of this series that we've been doing, called Why Me? And it's really been one of those things that I've gotten more feedback on this series than a lot, and it's always kind of encouraging when people are talking and saying, okay, well, this is really talking to me, or really enjoyed this, or I've got something out of it. And so, we started in the Old Testament. So we started a few weeks ago talking about Noah, and how Noah was obedient and he built an ark. But then what did he do? He grew a vineyard and he made some wine and he got drunk. Then we talked about Sarah, that impatient wife of Abraham who thought that God wasn't getting his promise done quick enough and said, well, why don't you sleep with my mate and see if we can have a child through her, and all the mess that went on. But God still fulfilled his promise to them. Then we talked about a guy named Gideon. Maybe you remember that story of Gideon. He kind of doubted that, maybe even these stories that our ancestors told us, maybe God wasn't for real. He kind of doubted. And then he tested God. And even after God used him, he took more authority than he was supposed to. But still, for 40 years, the Israelites had peace with God, and that was a good thing. And then there was last week, we talked about Jonah. You remember Jonah? The guy who said, no, I'm not going there. No, God, I don't want you to give those people grace. And so he buys a ticket on a boat, and he goes out to sea, and then there's that bad storm. He gets thrown overboard and winds up in the belly of a fish. And then he winds up going and does what God told him to do, and God gave those people grace, and even despite his reluctance. So this week we're going to move to the New Testament now. We're going to take a look at a guy that probably most of us know about. One of Jesus' closest friends, one of his 12 disciples, Peter. I don't know about you, but I always kind of get a little hope when I watch the story of Peter, because I think, well, maybe there's a little hope for me, despite who I am and my propensity to do things. So today we're going to take a look at Peter and look at his story, and we'll see if we can kind of see what God has in store. So first of all, we're going to look, and that's where we dove off today, in the Gospel of John, looking at Peter's call. And I'm going to show you just some differences between the Gospels. In John, Jesus is beginning his ministry, and some of John's disciples begin following him around, and so then they're asking him questions. So, Jesus looked around, saw them following. What do you want? He asked them. They replied, Rabbi, which means teacher, where are you staying? Come and see, he said. So it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They went to the place where he was staying, and they remained with him the rest of the day. Now Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of these men who heard what John said and then followed Jesus. So Andrew went to find his brother Simon and told him, we found the Messiah, which means Christ. So I kind of, I like the John version of how that happens, and I think it's interesting because John knows it wasn't Peter who came first, but it was his brother Andrew who then goes and tells Peter. Now, if we go back to the Gospel of Matthew, which again, different writer, focused a little bit different way. One day as Jesus was walking along in Matthew 4, along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, come, follow me, and I'll show you how to fish for people. All right, so I'm not going to solve any great mysteries today over was John right or was Matthew right. But the important message is Jesus calls out to this man, Peter, who was a fisherman. And Peter followed him. And that's an important thing to think about. Now, I wonder sometimes what happens when God calls out to you and me. Are we quick to drop what we're doing and go listen? Or to go follow? I don't know. I don't know if you can answer that question. So we see the call of Peter. Now I'm going to take a look at some of the mistakes of Peter. That's the way I'm going to term this. Because Peter had a colorful life. And again, this is why I feel okay that maybe there's a little hope for me, because Peter's done a whole bunch of stuff and some of it's been kind of colorful. If you look at Matthew 16, Jesus has begun telling the people he's got to go to Jerusalem, he's going to die, he's got to go to a cross. How do you think Peter liked that? Hey Jesus, come on, let's go over here and have a conference for a minute. And so here's what he does. But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Heaven forbid, Lord, he said, this will never happen to you. Jesus turned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan. You're a dangerous trap to me. You're seeing things merely from a human point of view, not God's. Then Jesus said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. Ouch. Jesus called Peter Satan. You the devil. I mean, how many times how many songs, Devil Went Down to Georgia, all those kind of things. When somebody's knocking, that Terry Gibb song, it's the devil and I never dreamed, blue eyes and blue jeans, those things. I don't know about you, but I don't want Jesus saying, get behind me, Satan. Now, of course, I know my propensity. So the possibility is real. So let's go on to Matthew 17. We're going to go to this place we call the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus takes a couple of his disciples, some of his close friends with him. And suddenly Moses and Elijah appear and begin talking with Jesus. And what does Peter do? Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. But even as he spoke, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved Son who brings me great joy. Listen to him." How many times, we kind of like Peter, we just don't know what to do when God does something great, so all of a sudden, let's find something stupid to say. Now, it may sound like I'm being harsh or picking on Peter. I believe that he's a good guy. He just can't help himself sometimes. And how many times is that you and me? We don't know what to do. All right, one more. I'm not going to beat Peter to death. In John 13, 37, 38, this is the upper room where Jesus, feeds them the Lord's Supper and all of those things. But why can't I come down, Lord? He asked. I'm ready to die for you. And Jesus answered, die for me? I tell you the truth, Peter. Before the rooster crows tomorrow morning, you'll deny me 3 times that you even know me. Now, those words probably hurt. And I believe that Peter was being as honest as he knew how to be. Lord, I'll do whatever it takes to go with you. But you also probably know the rest of the story. That next morning, the rooster crowed. And sure enough, 3 times he had denied him. So, we look at the life of this guy, and you think about it. I just wonder sometimes, do you and I think we've got too many problems for God to be able to use us? So, Lord, I've just made too many mistakes. Look at what's happened in his life, and God still has more. Because we've seen the call of Peter, we've seen some of his failures and mistakes, but I want to show you the plan for Peter. So going back to Matthew's Gospel, Matthew 16, verses 15 through 18. Then he asked him, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Listen to this. Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you're Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." Now some of those disciples sitting around hearing Jesus saying that, really? Jesus? I mean, do you think about the things that he's done? You sure Peter ain't going to be able to be toppled? But the plan, that's what Jesus wanted to do with Peter. All right. In John 21, let's go over, and this is after Jesus has gone to the cross. He's risen from the dead. The disciples are out fishing. Peter jumps in the water and swims ashore. Jesus feeds them breakfast. This was the 3rd time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he'd been raised from the dead. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know I love you. Then feed my lambs." All right. Take note of that. Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said. "You know I love you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. Okay. Feed my lambs, take care of my sheep. A 3rd time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a 3rd time. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Then feed my sheep." And we could spend time saying, asking him, he loved him 3 times because he denied him 3 times. I'm not going to answer those questions. But Jesus says, you're going to be the rock on which I build my church. Even in that time that Peter denied him, Jesus forgave him. And then when we go into the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 2, continuing verse 13, but others in the crowd ridiculed them, saying, they're just drunk, that's all. It's the day of Pentecost, and people were hearing in their own language. Then Peter stepped forward with the 11 other disciples and shouted to the crowd, listen carefully, all of you, fellow Jews and residents of Jerusalem. Make no mistake about this. These people are not drunk, as some of you are assuming. 9 o'clock in the morning is too early for that. No, he didn't say it's 5 o'clock somewhere. All right, so you're saying, okay. So my question for you this morning is, do you think God has a plan for everybody but you? I hate it when you ask those questions, preacher. See, we've spent 5 weeks looking at some people in the Bible, and the real problem, I think, is that you and I look at these biblical characters and we think, well, they're in the Bible. They're better than I am. They're like superheroes. You know, they don't know what it's like to live in my world. Every one of them lives in different times. Bad things are going on. They each have character flaws and failures. And they do things wrong. But each one of these people, God offers a relationship to. God uses in a mighty way. And even sometimes when he does that, they make mistakes. So the question for us is, do you really believe that God desires a relationship with you? And if you do, what's keeping you from responding? Do you think you're just too flawed to be any use to God? Why? And if you think that, would you be willing to pray and see if he would offer you that grace, that love, that forgiveness? Did you know just not? We'll lead us in a closing prayer, and Joseph will come. We're going to have a time to respond. So you listen to what God says to you right now. So God, you know our hearts this morning. And so Lord, you know the good, the bad. But Lord, the good news is you still love us. You still want that relationship with us. You were willing to let Jesus come for each one of us. And so God, I pray this morning, if there's one who hasn't put their trust in Jesus, then Lord, today, I pray that they be one. Lord, for some of us, we just look in the mirror and we're like, God, you just can't use me. Lord, I pray that the message of the truth of Peter might just help remind us that you love us and you're willing to forgive us even when we mess up. And you're willing to draw us back. So Lord, help us to hear your voice this morning, to do what you're calling us to do. For we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. In your arms and clothe me with your grace. Whisper to this heart.
feel your embrace. Breaking bread and wine, lead me to the place, garden of your love, open wide gates. Let your love come in. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Let your love come in. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Speak your words of life. Speak your words of life. Take my breath away. Write me in your courts. I will not delay. Let your love come in. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Show me the heights. Show me the heights. Show me the depths. Show me the widths and the lengths of your love. 'Cause where there is love, there's no room for fear. 'Cause where there is hope, all my doubts disappear. And where there is faith, mountains are cast away. 'Cause where there is love, all things are beautiful. Let your love come in. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. Oh, let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again. One more time. Let's propose. Let your love come in like a rushing wind and saturate my heart and soul again.
So as you get ready to go, pray that you go remembering that God loves you. You know, there's a lot of churches out there that try to push you into a form that tells you you've got to change and do this and that before God can love you. And my prayer is that the truth that God loves you just as you are fills your heart. And when you realize how much God loves you, I believe that's the point where we see God start to change and mold us. There's somebody out there that may be broken that needs to know God loves them. I hope you go tell them. They may be dying to know.